Welcome to OWNorDisown, where tech decisions are made easy.
Hi, this is Stephen from OWNorDisown. Well, what can I say? I was really looking forward to keeping the Alienware m18. But before I jump into the review, I'm going to bring back Find the Geek. This is to commemorate the 4th birthday of our Discord channel. A chance to win a $5 Steam gift card and have a bit of fun. The prize is in US dollars. Also, M2 Skins will issue a coupon code for a free laptop skin if they have the design. This will be just for the folks living in the USA though, as they don't ship internationally. Now I will hide this charming character somewhere in the video and you have to find him, emailing me to the email address in the description the time frame he is in. So if you see him at 5 minutes 20 seconds, that's what you tell me. I will keep the competition open for 24 hours after the video post date and will randomly select the winner. I will then pin a comment detailing that the gift card has been claimed. And I will do this on every video until further notice. Alright, so on to the review. The specs of our unit are an i9-13900HX CPU, 175 watt RTX 4080, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 4800 MHz RAM, a 1TB SSD, and an 18-inch QHD Plus 165 Hz 3 milliseconds panel with advanced Optimus and Windows Hello. It costs me $2,600 after tax directly from Dell. I was actually able to get a 10% off by registering my email address with them. I had reviewed the M16 and liked it, but I was concerned about the low 1% lows and the stutters I had in some of the games. Also, the CPU did run pretty hot, usually close to 100 degrees when in high performance mode. Now, does the larger chassis of the M18 help it? Nope, it's no cooler at all. Gaming in high performance mode or balance mode gives about the same frame rate, and although balance mode is a bit cooler than high performance, it's not going to win any awards. Often the M16 seems to perform a little bit faster, but I did test that with the CPU overclocked to level 1 because at stock it was capped at 55 watts. There was no such issue with the M18. As you can see in Cinebench R23, performance on the Intel chip scales with the sustained CPU power. At stock, the M18 would settle at about 130 watts. And like the M16, setting the CPU overclock to level 1 would increase this to about 145 watts, and applying an undervolt to then upping that to about 150 watts, which is probably the max we will see on the 13900HX. I tried propping up the rear of the laptop. That did help slightly, bringing the GPU temperatures down by 5 degrees, and I also tried it on a cooling pad, but that only saw a 3 degree drop on the CPU temperature, and it was still 95 degrees. In a CPU workload like Cinebench R23, the 13900HX would pull about 130 watts with up to a 14 degree spread between the performance cores. Now it's quite normal, I would say, to see up to an 8 degree spread, even perhaps a 10 degree on occasion, but 14 is pretty high. And Alienware uses their Element 31 thermal paste on both the CPU and the GPU. This paste is made of gallium silicon, which is supposed to help reduce temperatures, but it doesn't do a good job. You might as well use strawberry jam. I have done a video showing how to cool this bad boy down. It is very easy to do. Now, if you have not watched that video, I certainly recommend it if you're considering buying either the Alienware M18 or the M16. Applying a 100 mV undervolt, changing the CPU voltage to 1300 mV, and setting the PL1 to 115 watts in the BIOS will help out a lot. And you can also change the TCC activation offset. This sets the max CPU temperature. I've been told it tends to not stick in the BIOS, so I actually made that change directly in the Alienware control center. 85 degrees Celsius is the minimum, which is good for gaming, but setting it higher, like 98 degrees combined with the aforementioned BIOS changes, worked well in CPU-only workloads. I was still getting low 1% lows in games though, just like the M16, and stutters were again evident in Hogwarts Legacy, even at medium settings and frame generation on. Now this reminded me of an old video I did, whereby it was shown that the thermal pads Alienware used didn't make good contact with the power delivery components. Now if you haven't seen that video, it is actually a good watch, and after replacing those pads with thicker ones, that problem went away. Now the unfortunate thing here, Alienware decided to move the vapor chamber and the dies under the motherboard, so even if you wanted to repaste, or replace the thermal pads, you'll have to take the motherboard out. Now I can hear you screaming like a banshee with the prospect of doing that. Now, to compound the issue, I didn't think that much air was blown out of the sides, which is a shame because you have some quite large heat sinks there. The Alienware control center has been updated since I tested the M16, and it is easier to navigate. You have the various power modes, the main ones you'll be using for gaming being balanced and performance. Pressing the F1 key activates high performance mode, but to be honest, I didn't see much difference between the two. Frame rates and temperatures were very similar. Far Cry 6 did see less CPU watts in balance mode, but on the whole they were similar. Overdrive mode is just going to make it even hotter, so no need for that. Now the software isn't super responsive though. Custom mode gives you the option of performance and thermal mode. You can actually only have one or the other, which is a shame. In performance mode you can change the CPU voltage, GPU temperature limit and the overclock the GPU. Thermal mode we looked at earlier. The new control center does make it easier to change the RGB lighting of the keyboard, the alien head on the keyboard and on the lid, as well as the RGB ring round the back. The M18 only comes in one colour, that's dark metallic moon. The lid is made out of metal and is clean looking with just the glowing alien head on it. The keyboard deck is also made out of metal with a soft touch material on it. I did like the keyboard very much. It's a cherry mechanical keyboard with 1.8mm of travel. I thought it had very good tactile feedback and it's not super clicky. Since you have a deep palm rest, it is also comfortable to type and game on. There is ample space for a separate number pad along with separate volume controls above it. Dell says the trackpad is 14% larger and I found it good to use and didn't have any accidental activation with my wrists. And above the keyboard is an air intake, which is needed because the air intakes underneath have little effect because of that inverted motherboard. The underside is also made of metal and it is easy to remove. Once inside, you get the 97 watt hour battery. Now, that only got me 2 hours 20 minutes of battery life at 50% brightness. Now the panel refresh rate doesn't automatically switch from 165 Hz to 60 Hz, so if you do that, you may be able to squeeze out perhaps another 20 minutes or so. I really did like that you have 4 M.2 slots. There are 3 that are the smaller 2230 size, although one of those can actually be a 2280, and you have a 2281 that is occupied. Alienware says that the max storage is 9 terabytes, but I've seen 2 terabyte 2230 SSDs on Amazon, so I think you could have up to 12 terabytes. Either way, having this much storage is awesome. You can also have up to 64 gigabytes of RAM, and Alienware uses 4 fans. They have 2 for the CPU, which blows air out of 2 heatsinks on the right hand side, and 1 for the GPU. There's also a 4th fan in the middle to help airflow across the motherboard. Idle fan noise is pretty decent, 34 decibels, and max fan is 58 decibels. There's no pulsing up and down or whistling. Now gaming without headphones is okay, as the speakers are pretty loud at 80 decibels. Now as a content creator, I like that there is a full-size SD card reader, although it is located around the back. There is also a USB-C 3.2 Type 1 and 2 USB-C ports that include Thunderbolt 4, USB 4, DisplayPort 1.4 and 15 watt power delivery. There's a separate mini DisplayPort 1.4 and an HDMI 2.1 port. You also have a 2.5 gigabit RJ45, combo headphone mic jack and 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, one of which has PowerShare. Now with all its metal build and rugged frame, the M18 is built like a tank. But the laptop alone weighs 8 pounds 12 ounces, which is as much as many laptops which have the power supply. So when you do add the old school large 330 watt power brick, the travel weight is just short of 12 pounds. It's also much larger than one of the 17-inch 16 by 10 laptops you can get these days, so make sure you have a big bag enough to carry it. One thing I noticed was that when playing a game, if the power plug comes out of the back, the M18 would just power off rather than just switching to battery. Now this was in dedicated GPU mode, so I don't know if it would happen in auto mode, but it is concerning in case you get a power cut while gaming. Now I am a big fan of having a Windows Hello camera. It worked okay on the M18, not the best though, and sometimes I would have to move closer or dodge side to side like a boxer just to get it right. This is what the webcam looks like. Testing 1 2 3, and when you type, I do wish the 18-inch panel had a 240Hz refresh rate, but even at 165Hz, ghosting performance was good, as was the backlight bleed. Now most will complain that at 292 nits it's not bright enough, but in real use I never once thought it was dim. The LG panel has a good colour gamut of 99% of sRGB and 87% of Adobe RGB, and the advanced Optimus worked like a charm, automatically provided dedicated GPU mode and G-Sync when needed. At stock, the 13900HX performed as expected, albeit hot. Overclocking it does boost it a little bit, but generally slightly behind the 13980HX. So what did I think of the Alienware M18? Well, like I said at the start, I did want to keep it because I really like the 18-inch screen. I also like the keyboard, the 4 M.2 slots, and having an SD card reader. Now for years, I have been used to a 15.6-inch laptop screen, and there is no denying, in my opinion, with my aging eyes, that having a larger screen is better. But it does come at the expense of being much larger and heavier, so it's not something you want to travel around with a lot. As a desktop replacement, it is fine. The keyboard provided more tactile feedback than a membrane keyboard in my opinion, and it wasn't loud. Even though I was able to tame this high CPU temperatures, I don't think you should have to jump through hoops to do so. It should run below 90 degrees out of the box. But the killer for me was that inverted motherboard. It just doesn't seem to have any benefit other than dissuading people to replace it themselves. Perhaps it's a scheme by Dell to get more people to buy extended warranties. Who knows? Now, if you found my video helpful, consider subscribing. And good luck and finding that geek. Bye now.